87 North Korean tanks rolled across a dark Ukrainian valley, expecting to crush resistance. What none of them knew was that every road, every bend, and every escape route had already been mapped, mined, and targeted. Within minutes, the attackers found themselves trapped in an invisible cage of artillery, drones, and precision fire. So how did one of the largest tank pushes of the war unravel before it even began? And what role did British and French intelligence play in turning the battlefield into a graveyard of steel? Stick with this, because the answer is shocking. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. How could Ukraine know exactly when and where 87 tanks would cross? Intelligence wasn't left to chance. From the start, Allied surveillance aircraft had been sweeping the skies around the front. Drones circled at altitude, sending back every convoy movement, every engine start, every thermal signature picked up in the night. Satellite passes added another layer, charting the slow build-up of armored vehicles funneling north. Signals intercepted and decoded confirmed not only the timing, but the exact valley chosen as the axis of advance. This wasn't a lucky guess, it was a layered picture drawn in real time, fed directly into Ukrainian command posts and fine-tuned by weeks of pattern analysis. The armor itself came in the form of T-62s and T-72s, relics from another generation, but still dangerous in numbers. Crews trusted the cover of darkness, believing night would mask their approach. Their commanders expected dust, distance, and momentum to protect them, confident that even if some losses came, the rest could punch through farmland and reach the road net beyond. What looked like an opportunity for surprise was, in reality, a corridor already measured and prepared. Every entry point across that valley was charted. Ukrainian engineers had quietly reshaped the ground. Minefields weren't just random placements, but carefully designed patterns matched to GPS coordinates. Trenches were cut, then disguised. Pressure-activated devices sat linked to buried artillery shells, turning a single detonation into a rolling chain of explosions. These weren't the crude mine belts of old battlefields. They were part of an interlocking system designed not just to destroy, but to immobilize everything that pressed forward. Overhead, Allied drones carried infrared markers invisible to the human eye. As the armored column advanced, each tank and support vehicle was tagged, its position logged, and coordinates transmitted into digital fire control grids. British and French analysts thousands of miles away monitored transmissions and piped updated maps back to Ukrainian units in seconds. That live exchange meant the battlefield was mapped continuously, with every correction made faster than the tanks could roll forward. Yet on the ground, nothing seemed unusual. The convoy passed farmland where fields appeared untouched. Forest roads looked muddy but clear. No wires, no craters, no obvious signs of danger. The trap was all but invisible, buried just below the surface, hidden by dirt, crops, and scattered debris laid weeks before. Tank crews inside their steel hulls sensed nothing until the valley narrowed around them. Moving deeper, they drove into terrain designed to channel. Forward scouts reported nothing alarming, adding to the false sense of safety. Each turn took them farther away from a retreat line and closer to the calibrated points where fire would converge. Engines droned, the formation stayed tight, headlights cut to black, only infrared goggles cutting the night. They were confident they shouldn't have been, because what looked like luck was the result of painstaking work. British and French intelligence cells had mapped convoy staging areas from the day the tanks clustered inside rail yards. Analysts tracked the fuel shipments and radio exchanges that gave away marching orders. Ukrainian sappers responded accordingly, planting mines in layered belts at exact choke points, while artillerymen fed their guns coordinates long before the column even started moving. Nothing about Ukraine's readiness was improvised. It was a trap built with precision, and it was already closing. The tanks had entered a battlefield already rigged to decide their fate in minutes. At 3:21 in the morning, the first detonation thundered through the valley. A single mine ripped apart the lead tank with such force that flaming debris landed on the trucks behind it. In seconds, the entire column ground to a halt. The convoy had been stretched nose to tail, and that one explosion froze every driver in place. Crews inside shouted for direction, but the radios crackled with confusion. The dark farmland that had seemed like cover only moments earlier now lit up in flashes of orange as secondary blasts began to follow. As the lead vehicle burned, panic spread down the line. Tank after tank pressed into each other in the darkness, trying to adjust blindly on roads that were already caged by hidden mines. The crews inside couldn't see more than a few meters ahead, smoke cloaking everything. Then the ground shook again as another chain of mines triggered, sending fountains of dirt and steel into the air. A low-lying haze spread across the valley floor, thickening into a curtain that erased visibility. Gun barrels swung without targets to aim at, while engines roared in futile attempts to break free from the kill zone. Overhead, small buzzing drones circled unseen against the night sky. They carried laser designators, marking burning vehicles as reference points and guiding Ukrainian gunners to precise coordinates. Artillerymen, already dialed in, wasted no time. The first 155mm shells from French Caesar systems arrived in thundering arcs, pounding the road ahead of the trapped column. Seconds later, the heavier thuds of British AS-90 guns added their weight, dropping ordnance into the groups bunched together on the narrow track. Within moments, the valley rang with overlapping strikes. Shrapnel sliced through thin armor plates, commanders lost their bearings, and the static-filled field radios carried only fragments of broken orders. The fire wasn't indiscriminate. It peeled apart the entire structure of the attack. A launcher carrying fuel erupted, sending fireballs across vehicles parked too close together. Command trucks, sitting deeper in the formation, were torn open, killing officers inside who might have restructured the assault. Gunners deliberately targeted escape lanes, making sure anyone who tried to back out would drive straight into another belt of explosives. It wasn't random destruction. It was controlled dismantling of an armored brigade piece by piece. Even as artillery landed, new threats dove from above. FPV drones, flown manually by operators hiding in tree lines, plunged down at impossible angles. Each carried thermobaric charges designed not to just pierce armor, but to ignite everything inside with devastating pressure waves. Convoy crews who had survived the earlier strikes found hatches sealed by fire, while drones swooped directly onto their roofs. Some tanks erupted like furnaces, their turrets thrown sideways as explosions vented through their ammunition racks. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours for those trapped. In reality, the ambush unfolded fast. The exit routes sealed, fuel trucks disabled, command destroyed, and every form of reinforcement cut off. Each attempt at maneuver created another strike opportunity. Engines that had been roaring moments before now sat sputtering or silent, surrounded by smoke and flame. Crews who made it out scrambled into the fields, only to be driven back by incoming shells. The entire armored push had lost cohesion in less than the span of a single cigarette. By the 20-minute mark, nearly two-thirds of the vehicles lay burning, disabled, or abandoned. What had begun as a deliberate armored thrust collapsed into wreckage scattered across the valley floor. Instead of breaking through the defense, the attackers found themselves erased, their force destroyed before it even engaged in open battle. And then, as the valley choked with smoke and the wreck still glowed red, the battlefield shifted towards something almost no one had prepared for. Ukraine's success on that night wasn't only about artillery, drones, or traps in the valley. It came down to discipline under pressure, soldiers resisting the urge to waste fire or break formation, even as explosions shook the ground around them. That discipline turned overwhelming force into collapse, and when crews finally surrendered, what followed mattered just as much. Water, blankets, and medical care were given under the eye of the Red Cross. Even amid destroyed armor and burning wreckage, restraint prevailed. Winning battles may bring temporary safety, but peace requires something more, choosing not to hate.